Well, this is our last gender reveal segment for 2024 with Binary Australia's Kirralie Smith. We've been doing this segment for almost 2 years now, and every week there is a new development to talk about. We never have to talk about the same thing, such as the craziness of what's happening to children's gender through the LGBTIQA+ ideology. Kirralie, welcome to the last gender reveal. Thanks so much for fronting up again. You and I know it's absolutely right to keep highlighting the madness of our politicians who are going along with the idea that women can have a penis and that children should be transitioned. It's very dispiriting after 2 years of doing this show and many years of both of us being activists in this space to see that there's been no meaningful political reform at all in Australia.
No meaningful political reform, Lyle, but I think that the appetite is growing and the awareness is growing. And so, when you and I started talking about this many years ago and then together for the last couple of years on this show, I think the public awareness has grown exponentially and there are more politicians willing to at least listen to us, a few willing to speak out and even fewer willing to put forward bills and motions in Parliament. But I really feel confident that 2025 will see a massive uptick in the numbers because Donald Trump got in. He's going to make this part of his agenda, and Australians will have to talk about it. We'll see it, we'll hear it, we will see the impacts and effects of that. And so I'm looking forward to next year and thinking that we've got a good opportunity to really make this a big issue, particularly for the federal election.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Forgive me for being a little bit melancholy. I suppose I still am just aghast that our politicians don't get what you and I get. But you're absolutely right. There is room for optimism going to next year for the reasons you just said. Well, by continuing to shine a light on this, hopefully we can jolt the politicians into action because they're being harmed every day. And the latest example of this was a shocking story in The Australian. A family court judge, Terry Maguire, has ruled that a 15-year-old boy can start on harmful cross-sex hormones. What is this judge thinking?
Look, I don't know, but I know that the father's not in the picture and doesn't consent. I know that 15-year-olds can't consent to so many other things in our society, and we have a lot of child safeguarding practices in place for under 18s, and yet for some reason this Australian family court is saying that this child should be subjected to really harmful drugs. The court even acknowledged that, it's very questionable at the very least what these drugs can be doing. But while puberty is a human right and it's the only way that bodies, minds, emotions can mature into fully fledged adults, and a court awarding this decision and allowing a 15-year-old to go onto these harmful drugs, it just makes me want to weep. This child, could end up with that cohort of detransitioners who have been so betrayed by the political system, by the legal system, by the medical system in this country because they refuse to take into consideration the CAS review, what the UK, the Nordic countries, even New Zealand are realising that these are harmful drugs and should not be given to children.
Yep. No, that's right. And, we often talk about overseas examples, but this is just a case in point of yet another homegrown example of what really is abuse of a child, and our politicians are letting it happen. Kirralie, over in the UK, and again, this is just another one of the weekly howlers that come out in this space, but a man by the name of Bridget Baptiste, there he is on screen, has been listed by the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, in its list of its top 100 women for 2024. This is insane. This guy's got a case of autogynephilia, hasn't he?
Look, just by looking at him, you go, he's making a mockery of women. He's taking, hyper-sexualised stereotypes and claiming that he's a woman. And it's quite frankly just really gross, Yeah. If he wants to be a cross-dresser, if he gets off on it, all power to him, he can do that. But there's no way in the world he's a woman, and there's no way in the world he should be celebrated as a woman. That means he's taken the spot of of another woman who's made a really valid contribution to the world as a woman. He's a man pretending to be a woman. This is really insulting. Yep. It's really disgusting.
Yeah, hard to believe a public broadcaster, but look, our ABC here in Australia would do the same. Kirralie, there is some good news in this space this week, and coming out of the US, there's this much anticipated Supreme Court case looking at law in Tennessee which bans the attempted gender-altering treatments for minors, reinforcing the legality of protecting children from mutilating surgeries and chemical interventions. One of the key people who is involved in trying to give support to that case is Chloe Cole, and here's what Chloe had to say on the steps of the US Supreme Court.
They have been lied to about who they are, what it really means to be happy, to be healthy or whole. But I will tell you all this. You all are beautiful just the way that you were made. With all of your unique qualities, everything that makes you different is your strength. You deserve to be loved just as you are, to grow up in a healthy body. And one day you will find your identity outside of this. There are only two genders, but there are infinite ways to love yourself, to love our children within the bounds of reality.
And of course, Kirralie, Chloe's contribution all the more powerful because she lost her breasts as a 15-year-old as a result of LGBTIQA+ ideology. How do you think that court case is going to turn out?
Look, we can only hope for the best, Lyle. It is mind-boggling that this is even necessary. It's a no-brainer. We should never put children in harm's way. We do have mounting evidence and undeniable evidence that the harm that is being done to these children with these treatments is horrifying. And Chloe herself, as beautiful as she is still suffering from those treatments and with infections and terrible side effects. And it's criminal behaviour to do this to a child. Adults are meant to be the ones who safeguard. We are the ones who are meant to protect our children and give them safe passage into their own adulthood. So I can't see how they can come to any other conclusion other than to stop these harmful practices. Yeah,
I think that's right. And it seems like the commentary around the cases that went before the Supreme Court last week is that with the Trump-appointed Conservative judges, Tennessee's law is likely to be upheld, which means it will be legal for the states to protect children in this way. So that's certainly encouraging. It's also worth remembering, Kirralie, that it was the Biden administration that brought this case against Tennessee because it was trying to protect kids from having their breasts chopped off or be giving these surgeries. That says a lot about the left of politics, doesn't it?
Look, it's dangerous and it's insane, to be quite frank. There's no other way to describe it. And again, these children are the most vulnerable and they deserve the most care. And they're clearly not getting it. And for a government to come against, protecting children in this way is just unfathomable. Yeah, look, I think anyone who supports the left of politics, whether it's the Democrats in America or Labor and the Greens and the Teals in Australia or the left of the Liberal Party, the Simon Birminghams of this world, that's the sort of politics that they engage in, where they'll try and stop a state from protecting a child using lawfare. Kirralie, some more good news out of the US. The Economist magazine, which probably won't be familiar to a lot of viewers, but it's an important global public policy magazine out of London. Great writers, very left-leaning, but it's reporting this week that Joanna Olson Kennedy, who is one of amongst the most celebrated so-called youth gender medicine clinicians in the world, is being sued for medical negligence. This is a big deal. She's based in Los Angeles, and you and I have predicted that this is going to happen. But I discovered a disturbing clip on social media of Joanna speaking. It's worth having a listen to.
Let's talk about a hot topic, gender confirmation surgeries in minors. Okay, this is something that's coming on the horizon. Probably your kids are all going to ask you about it after our Talk to Dr. Joe session. Sorry. So this idea that a 14 or 15-year-old would want a vagina they identified as a girl is really not that out there. It's actually pretty understandable. Surgery, chest surgery for trans guys as minors is critical, and it's available. It's not nearly as difficult as genital reconstruction because it doesn't have anything to do with sterilization. The difficulty of genital surgery is that it is surgical sterilization, and people get super worked up about that. And that is the barrier that we have to overcome. And I think we're going to. But chest surgery is not that. It actually isn't. It's a very easy, safe, relatively fast procedure that is absolutely life-saving.
Now, Kirralie, can you believe what we're hearing?
Nope, she belongs in prison or an insane asylum. That is absolutely stunning, unbelievable. You know, she is being sued by a 20-year-old woman now who at 12 years old was put on puberty blockers, at 13 years old was put on cross-sex hormones, which induces menopause for young women. And then she had a double mastectomy at age 14, you know. How many other people has this doctor and her, you know, colleagues done this to? It is unbelievable. It is criminal behaviour. It is completely unnecessary, and the tone and the mocking that she just used for adults who are concerned about the sterilisation of children is unbelievable.
Yeah, she's talking about the idea that if you're concerned that a boy should have his penis taken off and given a fake vagina, that's something people like you and I and their parents have just got to get over. I mean, I can't believe what we're hearing.
No, there is no way that a child can consent, or that anybody should consent to somebody else being sterilised or mutilated in this way.
Yeah.
Yet that's exactly what's happening. And last week at our book launch, Lyle, we heard that there are cases of under 18-year-old children getting mastectomies and some even hysterectomies in this country, which is just mind-boggling. And I know Bernard Lane is going to look into this a lot more to get the facts and find that evidence. We know that studies have been repressed in Australia and that data is not coming out where it should. But this is a really serious, very concerning factor of these affirmation surgeries, because that is incredible criminal harm being done to children.
It is criminal harm, and it's great to see one of America's most high-profile clinicians. I hate to even use that word to describe someone who does this sort of barbaric experimentation on children. But Kirralie, you know, the people in Australia's gender clinics in Brisbane, at the Royal Children's in Melbourne, Maple Leaf House in Newcastle, Westmead here in Sydney, they need to be trembling in their boots. I reckon the lawsuits are going to come thick and fast because, as you said, there are many Australian examples of kids like this. You'd think they'd be shutting up shop as quickly as they could and trying to cover their tracks.
Well, they really need to, because, you know, even in that case in America, they're already claiming that some of the paperwork was lost due to water damage. Yeah, right. But you're exactly right. These clinics in Australia need to come clean. They need to stop what they are doing to children, and they need to be replaced with clinicians and practitioners who are actually going to look after the underlying side effects that these children have who are suffering from gender incongruence. They deserve the best of healthcare, and mutilating their bodies and putting them on these drugs is not the best care at all.
Yeah, well, I just wish we could sue the politicians as well. I'm sure the clinicians, like the one in America, they're getting sued. It's going to happen in Australia, but I wish the politicians could get sued because they've allowed this for years. Kirralie, you mentioned the book Devastated. I think we've got an image of it on screen. People can go to binary.org.au and get a copy of that. That's 9 stories from Australian families who have been affected tragically by this. Kirralie, thanks again so much for your contribution to the show this year. Really appreciate it. I hope you'll be back next year, and I hope there'll be some breakthroughs that we can report on next year. I'm sure there will be. Kirralie, Merry Christmas and all the best to you. Thanks again.
Yeah, and well done, Lyle, on a great show all year, and to ADH TV, you are doing a fabulous job. Thank you.
Well, it's Christmas. It's my favourite time of the year. I hope it is yours too, and that you can spend some time with family and friends. I hope you too can reflect, as I like to do each year, on the joy of Christmas, the coming of the Christ child. I always like to take time to read the Christmas story in the Bible, in Luke's Gospel of the New Testament. Angels in the sky above Bethlehem proclaiming joy to the world, to a motley crew of shepherds, a baby born in a cattle shed, kings from the east following a star. Christmas is the greatest story that we've stopped telling our culture. If we're going to renew our culture and our politics, we need to fall in love again with the greatest story that has underpinned the West over the past 2,000 years. Our woke detour needs to end. Renewing our culture starts by renewing ourselves. Can I encourage you to do that by taking some time to immerse yourself in the true meaning of Christmas over these next few days? Well, that's it for me for 2024. I'm grateful to Charles Noble and Dominica Fernell for producing this show week in and week out. Thanks also to ADH TV CEO Jack Bulfin and News Director Jason Morrison. Until next year, keep speaking up and keep pushing back.